So this is Chapter 7 of Terra Firma by David Wardlaw Scott, starting on page 140, Section 1, The Sun. It is truly painful to contemplate the results of modern astronomy, its rejection of the Word of God with respect to the revolution of the Sun, and its consequent tendency toward infidelity, its abandonment of reason, and its denial of the proper use of our senses as to the observation of actual facts, its brazen effrontery in teaching without proof the most ridiculous fallacies, fill the minds of the thoughtful and devout with real sorrow, knowing that so many have been already beguiled, and so many are still being beguiled under its baneful influence. Herschel, perhaps, in one sense, as much as Newton himself, tried to make fools of us when he wrote the following tidbit. In the disorder of our senses, we transfer in idea the motion of the earth to the sun, and the stillness of the sun to the earth. Which statement virtually means, do not believe your own common senses, but take our theories for granted. If you do not feel any motion in the earth, imagine that you do. And if you see the sun circling in the heavens, suppose that it is the earth which does so. Truly, it was his own senses which were disordered when he taught that it is the earth and not the sun that moves. The absurdities of modern astronomy are nowhere more apparent than in the theories respecting the sun, to a few of which I now beg to refer. It is by the presumed distance of the sun from the earth that astronomers make their calculations. Thus, as Mr. R.A. Proctor states in The Sun, the determination of the sun's distance is not only an important problem of general astronomy, but it may be regarded as the very foundation of all our researches. As previously stated, astronomers have differed so very much respecting its distance, even from 3 to 104 millions of miles, that as a matter of necessity their calculations must be radically wrong. Besides, when these were first made, the sun, according to their theory, was stationary. Now, they acknowledge that it moves, and since its creation has always been moving, so that their computations cannot possibly be correct. However, for the present, they have settled among themselves the distance of the sun from the earth to be between 91 and 92 millions of miles. Its size is computed to be about 1,240,000 times larger than our world, its diameter being estimated at 850 to 882,000 miles, and its entire cubic space at 686,018 billions, 968,000 millions of miles. Credite posteri. Will posterity believe that their forefathers could ever have been so foolish as to accept such ridiculous fancies as facts? And yet this is what gray-haired savants call truth, and gushing journalists, who I am inclined to believe do not personally know much about the matter, write fulsome articles to bolster up the delusion. One of the fables which our astronomers seem to delight in telling us is that the distance between the earth and the sun is so great that it would take an express train going at the rate of 60 miles per hour 173 years to reach it, at which wonderful news I doubt not that Dominie Sampson, could he hear it, would proclaim with special emphasis, prodigious. What would be thought of a man who wanted to light his dining room with a lamp 1,240,000 times larger than the room itself? Would not his friends think him only fit for a lunatic asylum? Yet such a preposterous act with respect to the lighting of this world, if not attributed by some astronomers to their own deity, natural law, is palmed upon the Jehovah of hosts, who is wonderful in counsel and excellent in working. Isaiah chapter 28, verse 29. He doeth all things well, proportioning the means to the end which he has in view. It appears to me that modern astronomy, like Roman Catholicism, is an attempt to revive pagan superstition. The former for temples has observatories, and the latter for a pantheon has the Vatican. For Baal, the astronomers have Newton, and for Astarte, the Queen of Heaven, the Roman Catholics have the Virgin Mary. I have lately been strengthened in the conviction that the adoration of the Virgin Mary is only a continuation of the worship of Astarte or Astaroth by an admirable lecture delivered by the late Reverend G.W. Stratton, rector of Ayleston, Leicester, to which I beg to refer my readers, as also to that very excellent and learned work, The Two Babylons, written by the late Reverend A.H. Hislop for Arbroath, both of which may be obtained as mentioned below. The Bible order of the heavens has been completely subverted by our astronomers. Instead of the sun revolving around the world, the world is declared to revolve around it. As a mere planet of little note in astronomic esteem, although the blessed Son of God gave his own heart's blood for its redemption. Angels desire to look into that wondrous sacrifice, which scientists like Huxley and Darwin regard only with a cynical scorn because of their ignorance of that which is the highest and truest in which the highest and truest science consists. The Greek heathen philosopher Pythagoras brought the sun worship with him from Egypt, where he had resided for a considerable time and had been initiated into its mysteries by the priests. His system of astronomy lingered for a while till it was supplanted by that of Ptolemy, and for many centuries seems to have been forgotten, till Copernicus drew the fabled phoenix from its ashes. By Newton and his followers it has been skillfully adapted to suit the depraved taste of modern idolatry. For idolatry is far from being extinguished in Christendom, and still flourishes in various forms in this degenerate age under assumed names. The sun has spots. Fabricius, nearly 300 years ago, was the first among modern astronomers to note them, although they were known to the Chaldeans in early ages. Since his time, many astronomers have made them their special study. One in particular is said to have observed them for 30 years every day on which the sun was visible. They appear and disappear, and it is yet not really known what they are, but the chief deduction drawn from them is that the sun turns upon an axis in about 24 days. Some of the spots observed on the photosphere or disk of the sun are whiter than iron at a white heat, and come and go so rapidly that they are called faculae or torches. The edge of the disk is called the chromatopsphere, or the Sierra, or as one has expressed it, a quivering fringe of fire. As it might perhaps be thought that in describing the wonders of the sun, I am acting the part of a Munchausen myself, I think it will be safer for me to quote a passage or two from the works of modern astronomers themselves, who, if sometimes considered prone to exalt their own importance, should not, as a matter of politeness, be supposed guilty of exaggerating the marvels of their own idol. Sir Robert Ball says, unparalleled in its luster, the planet Venus is unexampled in the intensity of the pull with which it seems to make the earth swerve from its revolution around the sun. I have calculated the magnitude of this force, and when expressed in tons, the figures that are required baffle our power of comprehension. The tons in the attraction, or rather, I ought to say, in the disturbing force of Venus are comparable with the miles in star distances. The force is indeed 130 trillion tons, so 1,000 million billion trillion. Miss Gilburn writes as follows: it sounds to us both grand and startling to hear of jets of liquid lava from Mount Vesuvius, 10,000 feet in height, or to read of a river of lava from a volcano in Iceland pouring in one unbroken stream for 50 miles. But what shall be thought of the long flames mounting to a height of 50 or 100,000 miles above the edge of the sun? What shall be thought of a tongue of fire long enough to fold 3 or 4 times round our solid earth? What shall be thought of the awful rush of burning gases sometimes seen, borne along at a rate of 1 or 2 or even 300 miles in a single second across the sun's surface? What shall be thought of the huge dark rents in this mighty fiery ocean, rents commonly from 50 to 100,000 miles across, if not seldom more? 50,000 miles, a mere speck scarcely visible without a telescope, yet large enough to hold 7 earths like ours flung in together. The largest spot measured was so enormous that 18 earths might have been arranged in a row across the breadth of it, like huge boulders of rocks in a mountain cavern, and to have filled up the entire whole, about 100 earths would have been needed. Now, all this, as the Yankee would say, is very tall talk, but it amounts to nothing, because it is only assumption, and should at least teach the votaries of modern astronomy not to give statements as facts till they have first been proven to be true. If any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing yet as he ought to know it. The fact is that in this time state our knowledge is very imperfect. Blepomen gar arti de esotron en enigmati. For we see as yet through a mirror obscurely, or as in a riddle. 1 Corinthians 13:12. In the great beyond we shall see face to face, and fully know, even as we are fully known, or epiginosko. Even such an enthusiastic writer as Miss Gilburn confesses, we do not know with any certainty whether the sun is through and through one mass of glowing molten heat, or whether he may have a solid or even a cool body within the blazing covering. Some have thought the one and some the other. We only know that he is a mighty furnace of heat and flame beyond anything that we can possibly imagine in our quiet little earth. Sun, Moon, and Stars, page 18. Our talented authoress must surely, in describing our earth as quiet, have had in her mind the teaching of the Bible, where it says, behold, all the earth sitteth still and is at rest. Zechariah chapter 1, verse 11. A very different state from that which our astronomers teach, namely, that it is rushing round the sun at the rate of 65,000 miles per hour, 1,000 times faster than an express railway train.